beautiful state of Western Australia. We are recording this meeting. Some of the presentations will be of interest of those that can't make it. But certainly in terms of acknowledging country, I would like to encourage everyone to write their acknowledgement in the chat from their country. We were very interested in finding out where you're all coming from. I would like to say, Nala Kadich, Kenyan Kajak, Nunga Mort, Nija Buja. I'm coming from Wajak country today. And the interesting part of today's proceedings is that we were going to be face-to-face. Unfortunately, given we had a few challenges with COVID and people not been able to make a meeting from across their locations, we figured that we're now pretty dynamic and an online meeting was going to be okay. So hopefully everyone is comfortable with that. We had significantly progressed with planning for that meeting, and as a result, we'd organised a lot of local people from around the Bunbury area. So if we hadn't had to flip that, we would have had a few more presentations from across the state. But please forgive us for that short notice, and we hope you enjoy your presentations today. We will have a format outline. We'll have Louise Duxbury, our NLN board member, today tell us about the federal Landcare scene. 2 sessions of inspiring presentations from our group members, and a little bit of question time after each of those presentations, or each block of presentations, sorry. So please save those questions you might have, or even pop them in the chat. You're welcome to do that. We're looking forward to a long and arduous AGM where I read out every single word, every report I've written. Instead, no, I'm going to be relying on you to have read through a lot of those reports, had a look, and basically be ready to ask any of your questions through the AGM, and we'll work our way through that as quickly as we can. I can see that the team is busily adding and admitting more people, so welcome to anybody who's come late. And then Caroline has provided the event program and links in the chat. So have a look in the chat if you're looking for any last minute documents that you would like to refer to, or if they're being referred to in the meeting. So without any further ado, I would like to introduce Dr. Louise Duxbury, our fabulous NLN Landcare Network, National Landcare Network Board Member, and she is going to talk to us about what is the future looking like for Landcare. Thank you, Lou.
Well, that's a very formal introduction, I've got to say. You know, in this sort of environment, I hardly ever use my sort of formal title unless I think I'm in an environment where it can actually get me a bit further, you know, with a bit more influence. So great to be here. And yeah, the federal scene, Landcare scene. Kylie, that's not, just flick through to the 3rd slide. Thanks.
That one?
That's the one. I was in Canberra last week, in fact, and had a day and a half National Landcare Network Board meeting, and also met with a couple of people from one of the key departments that funds Landcare. And overall, I'm feeling really hopeful. The 2 ministers that are relevant to us and our interests are both very personally interested.
So it's good to hear.
Somebody's got their mic on. If you can mute, great. Yes, so it's looking really positive. Tanya Plibersek is personally interested in Landcare. She's been out with the local Landcare mobs around Parliament House very recently. She names Landcare as one of her personal interests, that after she's out of her formal roles that she would like to volunteer. And I believe that she is fairly genuine in that. I think that's really helpful. Murray Watts, who's the Minister for DAF, Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries, is likewise personally committed, but doesn't come across in quite so personal way. So this is good, and they have certainly made some commitments federally. So the National Landcare Network, which I sit on the board on for WA, is the peak representative body for community land care. And so that's where it sits. And in every state and territory, there is a group like the WA Landcare Network. And that board comes together every about 6 weeks, 2 months, and it's really advocating, it's a single unified voice for community land care. That's every single smaller and large group around Australia. And there's been an estimate that that means there's about 6,000 groups, and many of those have got a lot of membership. Pretty much all of the regional bodies are members of the state and territory organisations. And the key thing is that we have a board, but we've also got a members council. And I'll come to that a little bit later. If you can just flick 2 slides down. The budget, federal budget, these are pretty much the announcements. But what I wanted to say is that the 2 departments have got different responsibilities, and there has been a different separation of those responsibilities with the incoming government. So it's important to know that the department, which is shortened to DQ, DCCEEW, is DQ for short. It takes responsibility for the biggest bulk of the funding that we're interested in. So about 817 million of the 1.1 billion overall that they have committed and announced. And the Department of Agriculture, Fisheries, Forestry and Fisheries has about 318. So it's important to know that, and also that the sorts of programs are quite distinct. So in the DAF, so I'll just use the acronym from here, DAF is things like smart farms. They continue to have that. That's where the funding for the National Landcare Program and the state and territory organisations comes through DAF. The DQ, which has energy, climate change, water, biodiversity, all of those things are in this mega department, DQ. And it's very appropriate because of the linkages between all of those different interests. If you think about climate change, we are centrally interested in climate change. It impacts on everything that we do. So it's good that it's underneath the single minister, and that's Tanya Plibersek. Some of the key areas underneath that which have been announced are things such as the ranger program. So there's 1,000 rangers, and they're looking to see how that's going to be delivered. So I can't tell you about how that's going to roll out. That is the area where there is the addressing species loss. And what I can report on that, which is very positive, is that they are reviewing that and how it rolls out, which is a very positive thing. And that they're not ready to make all of the announcement regarding that. So that's under the saving native species area. They are also reviewing the EBPZ Act. Now, this is also very significant because actually it isn't adequate as it stands. Under the previous government, they were talking about watering it down. Well, I'm glad to report that they are seriously going to be reviewing it to strengthen it. Now, this is very important, and part of what they'll be doing is looking at how do they monitor, because that auditing and monitoring has been very poor. And this was highlighted in the State of the Environment reporting, is that we actually don't have really good data about how we're travelling with both species and also habitat. So it's really clear that underneath the new program, they're looking not just at single species, but at whole habitats. Hallelujah. Don't we all agree that the one must be within the other? So those things are really important. One of the areas that they've talked about, and we haven't got any detail, is the nature repair program. So I think that just keep your eye out for that. There will be quite a lot on First Nations, which is really great and really significant. So they've got a large commitment to the Indigenous protected areas funding, and also to ongoing responsibilities for things like heritage and Ramsar wetlands. One of the areas which is no surprise, and that is in the under the Ag Transitions, Climate and Disaster Resilience and Emissions Reduction. And as I say, it's in that combined department, federal department. So it's really great to see that coming through. There are some quite specific projects such as that don't really hit us in Western Australia, but there is a major commitment to the Great Barrier Reef and underneath the whole water area, there is a significant commitment to the Murray-Darling Basin, as you can imagine, but also some new ones under things like koala protection and habitat protection. And that's because we know that they are heading into being in real trouble as an endangered, if not extinction, crisis. So all of that is significant. Any questions on that budget that I might be able to respond to? Thanks, Kylie.
Encouraging you, if you've got a question, to pop your hand up in the chat, possibly, as we're managing the, you're all muted beautifully, but please feel free to add your hands up option. If you can't find that, just unmute and yell out.
I will put in a couple of just links to the budget summaries. There's not everything that has been announced is in here. And also the other thing that they certainly reported on last week when we met with them is that they haven't announced absolutely everything. They are reviewing the rollout, the actual delivery mechanisms for some of these major programs, which is very interesting to all of us. And they have got a few programs that they haven't yet announced. So that's also interesting to all of us. You know, exactly what are they? Not sure. So I can't report what I don't know. One of the programs that was also announced and will be funded is a National Landcare facilitator. And many of us who've been around for long enough will know that we had a National Landcare facilitator for quite some time. And it was a very effective position. The National Landcare Network has proposed a way of delivering that, and is suggesting that we would have 2 people who would be in that role, and that they would be both looking outward, so gathering information from all of you, all of us, and also inward to the government, and gaining knowledge to be able to share in both directions. So that's definitely been funded, but the way that it's going to be delivered has not yet been finalised, and we're having input into that. The other thing that I'd like to just report on, and some of you will have heard this just recently, and it's great to have some of our colleagues from regional bodies like Luke Bailey, who's only just taken up his position at South Coast NRM, which is terrific. We've also got a couple of others from other various regional bodies.
We've got Sabian from Perth NRM. We have Karen Boyce, who's the new chair for the Southwest Catchments Council.
Awesome. And that is that the National Landcare Network and regions, NRM Regions Australia, have recently put together a collaboration framework. And this is really to say, we know we need regional bodies that do strategic thinking, and all of the community groups, like everybody else who's here, and state agencies, we all need to be sitting around the table. Regional bodies are the ones who live longest. We live, we're committed to, we want to be there, and we want to be sitting around the table to look at the priorities and to direct the funding. And having a collaboration framework helps to identify what that looks like. What does good collaboration look like? So that will be on the WA Landcare Network website for everybody to get a copy of that, because it's about all of us sitting around and having those really important conversations about how the hell can we actually tackle the huge challenges that we face most effectively together. And that it's totally transparent, which is one of the things that we've been certainly looking for. Yes, the reason why the National Landcare Network is so important is that for us in the West, boy, you've got to really be there. It's great to have a national body and advocating for the whole country, because the challenges that we have in Western Australia are unique and they're big. We are a big state, and sometimes you have to really get in there with your elbows, you know, like that, to make some space, along with our colleagues from the Northern Territory and South Australia, who together we've got a big chunk of the whole country, because sometimes our friends can be a little bit Eastern centric, I've got to say, and I'm sure some of the others of you who've had this experience would certainly concur with me that we absolutely benefit from sitting around the table like I did last week. It takes me a day to get to Perth, a day to get to Canberra in each direction. So it's 4 days extra to people who come from Canberra, or an hour on a flight from Melbourne or Sydney to get to Canberra. But gee, it's worthwhile being there and to be represented to the departments. It was great to re-meet a couple of the people from the department who were at the NRM Knowledge Conference, which I also got to go to in Margaret River. So those linkages mean that Western Australia is much more in their line of sight. This is really important, for example, with major projects such as the post-fire collaboration that happened through the National Landcare Network and was funded several millions of dollars, but Western Australia didn't see a dollar of that particular program. We lobbied really hard to be included. We had major areas that were affected by fire in that same period, 2020-21. We had 600,000 hectares of the Great Western Woodlands burnt, and I flew over that on my way to Canberra this time around. It is devastating, but because it wasn't quite as devastating, it wasn't as devastating as the Eastern States, and we didn't have a lot of people in those areas. We did not get any funds for some of the really critical repair work that we need to do. So that's part of the funding announcements, has been about climate and disaster resilience. And we're certainly going to be there to say, well, Western Australia needs to be absolutely part of that. So yes, we are a hotspot. We need to be well acknowledged in that. Thanks, Bruce. And the other thing I wanted to come back to, and that is the National Landcare Network really rests on the Members Council, and each state and territory has 3 representatives on that Members Council, which really directs policy to the board. And Jacqueline here, Jacqueline Lane, Bruce Ivers, and Mick Davis are all on that Members Council. And so we're constantly talking with them and liaising about how what they want to see advocated for, and they collectively do that with the whole Members Council. So it's a very representative, and that's the strength of the National Landcare Network. It's about all of you. So I think I'd like to really finish with saying that myself and the Members Council members that I've just mentioned through the WA Landcare Network are really important. If you've got things that you think are issues you want to have raised, it's really important that you're active with that, because the more that real on the ground trying to deliver, it's been a tough gig this last decade, really, when we know that the pressures are so huge and the funding has remained the same or less, that we actually need to be able to advocate more successfully and get the funding on the ground, as close to the ground to delivery, that is also strategic and across landscapes and across regions. We need to be able to do that more effectively to get the sort of capacity and the resource that we need to make a difference together. So that's my job, is to for the next couple of years. I've been there for a year, and I'm keen to hear from people, and I'm sure that Jack, Mick and Bruce are too.
Thanks so much, Jack. Sorry, Lou, that is, I think, the essential part of our work, hearing from our members and also helping leverage the value from funding to hit the ground locally through Landcare. You know, one of the things that we've talked about recently is the value add that Landcare offers, and the importance of having that key or core funding, and then, you know, the benefit that can bring to all of our communities and our landscapes and our productive systems across WA and of course in Australia. So, you know, what better day to acknowledge that than International Volunteers Day? I think in WA there's something like 500,000 volunteers recognised by Volunteering WA, and you can only imagine the amount of value that they collectively add to the Landcare movement. And certainly you want to shout out to a few groups out there who are doing their international or their volunteer events today. I know that Perth NRM have got one on down there, Sabian and David, and kudos to you guys. And I know there's probably others happening out there. So it's a great opportunity for us to hear from those volunteers, transfer that concern or that support up into a national framework, so that our national support framework can keep doing it. All right.
So just one more thing I'll say is that the National Landcare Network has also just recently had its AGM. That was last week, and so its annual report is out, and I'll pop that into the chat in a minute. And it's really worthwhile going to that, because it really helps to flesh out the things that I've been saying about what it's doing and some of its successes over the last year. And we're certainly looking to increase our capacities over the coming year. I think that we're feeling very hopeful about that. So yes, and Bruce asked about the private industry in the eastern states. Yes, they are quite engaged, and I've got to say they're taking the front running on things like renewable energy, in fact, and the Farmers for Climate Action, which the National Landcare Network now has an MOU with, are certainly a fantastic organisation, really working in that space of agriculture, climate action, including a renewables commitment. So I think that there's some very interesting crossovers, and in the carbon area, of course, private industry is leading. So, and I would point to some of what I call the vegetarians in that particular sphere. I'm looking always for the vegetarians, not the meat eaters or the sharks. And there are some really good vegetarians that I think that we really need to keep an eye on, including things like accounting for nature as a way of actually identifying when we're having successes. and there's some really terrific catchment initiatives where they're using accounting for nature across whole catchments and showing what you can do when you invest. Another one that I just mentioned, which was at the NRM conference in Margaret River, was Bega Cheese, talking about the circular economy and identifying how to do that within a particular catchment area. So watch that space also.
Okay, I think I'm back. I just dropped out very quickly, but that brings us, well, thank you, Lou. And I think, get on to your emails, contact us directly, ask those questions and let us represent you collectively as a group or individually anytime you like. I'm going to now hand over to Jack, who's going to talk to us about or introduce our speakers for celebrating our Landcare Champions. Thanks, Jack.
Terrific. Thanks, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the Executive Officer of the WA Landcare Network. Welcome. And thank you to Louise for that terrific update about the things that are happening nationally that we're very positive about. We'll have some flow on the ground for WA over the next couple of years. Our next and favourite patch of any WALN gathering is when we get to hear from our local Landcare champions, where we get a real dose of enthusiasm and passion, and we hear about what they're doing on the ground. So the shape of this next little section is we will have 3 presenters. Hold your questions, take furious notes, and sit on your hands. Don't unmute until we get to the end of those 3 presentations, and then we'll have questions for our presenters. Then we're going to have a short break after that and our short AGM, and then back to the other 3 presenters. So our first one for today is Katrina Zelander-Adams from the Leschenault Catchment Council. Katrina's going to talk to us about the Preston River Foreshore Revitalisation Project. So Katrina, if you have a need for any help at any time in sharing your presentation, just give us a yell. I did see you there.
Hey, Jack. Yeah, thanks. I think, was Kylie going to share my presentation for me? There we go.
There it is.
Thank you. Are you able to do the start slideshow?
Yep.
Yep. Great.
There we go. Sorry.
All right. Thanks, everyone. So yeah, I'm Katrina. I'm the Biodiversity Program Manager for the Leschenault Catchment Council, but I have been on maternity leave for the past 5 months, and I still am on maternity leave. So please forgive my baby brain during this presentation. If you could just pop to the next slide, please, Kylie. Yep. So the Preston River Foreshore, for those of you who aren't familiar with the area, it's located in the heart of Donnybrook, and it's a really popular place for the locals and visitors alike. It holds significant cultural, aesthetic, recreational and environmental values for the community. However, it's a really degraded stretch of the Preston River, and there's a lot of threats going on down there, including erosion, weed incursions, pests, increased nutrient and sediment loads, and also a lot of altered hydrology. So we knew that something really needed to be done down there, but how to do it and where to start was quite overwhelming. Luckily, we secured some state NRM funding back in 2020, and with the support of the Donnybrook Baling Up Shire and the local Lions Club of Donnybrook, we got cracking. If you could go to the next slide, please. So there had been a little bit of weed control works done down on the river previously by the Lions Club volunteers, but other than that, very little else was currently being done other than a little bit of standard management by the local shire. So with the funding, we saw a really great opportunity to collaborate with as many local community groups as we could to breathe some life back into that foreshore reserve, given that it was so popular. The aim there was to improve the environmental, cultural and recreational values of the Preston River foreshore, and we did this by identifying key management issues and developing a management plan, undertaking weed control and revegetation works on the ground, and also raising the community awareness and getting them involved. Go to the next slide. And if you just want to press yep, thanks. And you can go actually again, because that's just a before and after of some of the re-veg that we did. So what exactly did we do to get all this happening? We held several community events over the 2-year project, including we started with an information session to get the local community on board and sort of raise some interest. We held a night stalk down by the river, which proved to be really, really popular. We actually had to turn a lot of people away, which was a shame, but it was also really nice to see how many people wanted to be involved. We sighted a bunch of western ringtail possum down along the river, which was super exciting, and also identified 3 species of bats down there. We've held a couple of busy bees as well to clean up the area and water the seedlings, and we've also held 2 planting days. And every event that we've had down there has just been a huge turnout, and it was great to be able to see the same members of the community coming back time and time again. We also had really great support from a lot of the local businesses in town. They'd help us with advertising the events and even donating some food for our volunteer events as well, which was really exciting. Next slide, please, Kylie. So to date, we've planted 2,800 seedlings along the river there. It's just in a small patch, and you know, we're hoping over in the next few years and beyond to increase our footprint down there. We've had over 150 volunteers helping out, and that's just been sort of a combination of the general public, but also 5 local community groups as well helping out down there. We've had a management plan prepared, which will assist with the future stewardship of the river foreshore. Unfortunately, due to COVID, we didn't actually get as much weed control works done as we would have hoped to down there. That was because a lot of the volunteer programs that we were relying on, such as Work for the Dole and things like that, were actually suspended during the COVID lockdowns and things. So that was a bit tricky, but we still managed to do a little bit of weed stuff. Next slide. There we go. These are just some more photos of the work along the foreshore. I don't know if you can see very well, but that top left photo looks like we're working in the river. We weren't actually planting in the river. It was just that wet on that day. That was our first community planting day. And despite us getting absolutely saturated and it just pouring with rain, we actually had 40 volunteers turn up on the day, which was really heartwarming. And yeah, just the next slide as well, please, Kylie. So where do we go from here? Luckily enough, we've secured some more state NRM funding. So that's going to give us another 14 months of work down there. And we've also had a lot more co-contributors this time around, which I think has been, you know, shown a proof of the success of the first project that we undertook. We hope to get even more community organisations on board during this next phase. We want to collaborate more with the local Aboriginal Corporation. We really only scratched the surface with them during this last round of the project. And we want to tackle, of course, a lot more of the weeds along the foreshore. So quite a bit more funding has been put into the weed control. It will also be great to have a lot more involvement with the schools, the local schools, because this also proved to be quite challenging during COVID with, you know, excursions and things like that being suspended. And I'm also trying to drum up some enthusiastic participants to actually create a Friends of group for the Preston River foreshore. So if you know anyone or if you're local, please get in touch. We've still got a lot of work to do down there. It's quite overwhelming, really, particularly the weeds and the erosion. But what we're doing is we're just trying to tackle one section at a time. And, you know, when you're working with such small budgets, we're just trying to pick areas where we know that we can get good bang for our buck. And that's it from me.
Wonderful, Katrina, thank you. I can see that we've got a question in the chat already. We'll come to that in due course. We're going to move now to a program that I hear about around the state and actually heard being discussed nationally. This is the Arum Lily Blitz, Changing Community Attitudes and Behaviours. And our presenter is Mike Griffiths from Nature Conservation, Margaret River Region.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? All good. Thank you. I'm going to jump across and see if I can share the screen successfully. Does that look okay?
Yes.
And, oops. Let's see how we go. Right. Yeah, big hi to you all. I saw a few of you at the Knowledge Conference in Margaret River recently. And yeah, it's great to be joining you from here in Wadandi country in the Cape to Cape region. And a real pleasure to be here. Apologies from Drew McKendry, our General Manager, who's really under the pump with a few other things happening at the moment. And a big shout out to Genevieve Hanran-Smith, who was really the brains behind the Arum Lily Blitz, and I feel like I'm very much trying very hard to fill some very big shoes. We go back to the root issue, which was the Arum Lily, a very successful South African plant that I'm sure most or all of you are very familiar with. And if you've done a drive anywhere through, particularly around south between Bustleton and Augusta, I'm sure you're really familiar with seas of arum lilies all over the place. However, the good news is there's a fair bit of work done and it's ongoing, and it seems to be really getting legs of its own. So Genevieve started back in 2012 after some big bushfires gave a bit of a rare opportunity to get going with some of the local community near Margaret River. And it was, just see if I can rearrange the screen a little bit. Yeah, there were quite a lot of things came out from talking to local people. There were a few that had been working hard doing their own arum control. There was a lot of awareness of the general issue. It was also very clear that there were a number of barriers as to why people, preventing people going ahead and doing their own work. The whole issue needs to be, I guess that the main thing there is that arum lilies are one of the most serious threats to biodiversity in the southwest, in the lower southwest region. Once they get in there, they just completely choke out the understory, and a whole lot of all those vital things that are so important for the ecology just gradually drop out. In the end, you have an understory of arum lily under karri forest and even through some of the other forest, and particularly around wetland areas. And eventually, of course, it stops regeneration of the overstory trees. So you get a complete, Genevieve calls it a biological bulldozer. So getting the community on board was the key thing. This is all about people. That became very clear. And people would say, well, there's no point, because what are neighbours doing and what's happening in the national park, they're everywhere. People were unsure actually how achievable it was to do it themselves, and others weren't too sure about how to go about getting help. What contractors were out there and had an understanding of the environmental issues and so on. So and also using any herbicide, even the safest of the herbicides that were quite known to be effective for arum lilies was really a bit of an issue, because all you could buy from general outlets was huge big 1 kilogram containers that are quite expensive, when most people only needed really tiny, micro amounts. So those were the issues, and it was a case of taking steps and getting things done. And it started with drawing up a management plan, which identified some priority nodes in the area where there was capacity, community capacity, and then getting the community on board. State NRM provided funding for 3 years, and then Nature Conservation were successful in getting a second 3-year funding from state NRM as well. And we currently just finished year 4 of what's in total 6-year program. So couldn't have done it without the funding from state NRM. And one of the key elements was demonstrating what was actually happening from an ecological point of view on the ground, with 2 big demonstration sites that involved a lot of monitoring. Media was a key part of it, and getting the local communities on board. It needed to really target people locally around Margaret River, right up to Yallingup and Bustleton and down to Augusta. It needed to be really focused with locals. And there were a number of local champions targeted and agreed to come on board and speak out about what they were doing and how important it is to all work together. And that was very successful. We had some great support from businesses. This is Dunsborough Rural, who have one of 3 businesses that have been helping us get the product and the information out there to landholders who just want to do their bit. And clear messaging. You can control it. It makes a really big difference. It's really important for the natural environment, and it's also important to be a good neighbour. You can control arms. We had a video set up. This is actually Drew in a former role as a contractor, and we've had the instructional video steps people through how to go about it, all the environmental safeguards, all the health safeguards, the PPE, and so on, and talk about the whole thing in a very practical way. So that's online. We had information sheets that are also online, and a whole lot of other resources that really put people onto websites and really make it easy to understand and clear. And huge collaboration. That was a key thing. Working with DBCA, we had lucky to have some very good project officers locally, and that's still the case today. Green jobs funding through state government was really allowed a big chunk of work in the national parks. And the other really key thing is getting some major community groups on board, and I have to just go straight to Yallingup LCDC and the Friends of the Cape to Cape Track. They've been massive. They've got incredible dedicated team of army, I should probably say, of workers. They do a whole lot of other work, environmental management work in their areas, and they've been to massive community groups who have provided a really key role for the Arum Lily Blitz. The whole thing is to keep people committed and keep people inspired to keep plugging away at it and messaging that, you know, that we really are making a big difference working together. People tend to see the arum lilies that are left. They don't see the ones that all the work that's done. So we have to keep spreading that message. And just to finish off, back in a few figures here, I'm going to just skip over, but if I can provide this information to anybody that's interested, it's actually quite phenomenal how many people across the region got on board and all working to control arum lilies. Some amazing dedicated contractors, and just skipping through those. Imagery was always really important, showing people what happens with a little bit of basic photo point monitoring. And even in 1 to 2 years of removing the mother load of arum lilies, it is phenomenal what understory plants come up and how nature responds. Here's just to illustrate one of our 2 monitoring sites at Point Road in the Lewin Naturalist National Park. And the densities there show dropping off after just 3 years. And we've been out, spent some time in the 4th year now. We've just been out there, and it's phenomenal what's actually how the ecology is responding. And this really just shows some changes in an area that we started with one of our initial nodes, actually starting in 2012, and then 2017. 2019 was the first year of the funded arum lily blitz, and a huge lot of these are landholders who are engaged and doing their own work on their own properties. 2020 and 21, and there's a whole lot more this year that are yet to go on that map. It's really a project all about people, getting local people, community members on board, engaged and sharing the message. We've ramped it up again this year with on the messaging front with Instagram and Facebook, taking that to another level, and we're really focusing on our local papers as well. And what we're seeing is a shift in culture and an ownership, because we've got limited funding. We always knew it was funding is only enough to make a difference, get that shift in culture going and get people on board. And we've got 2 more years to keep the ship sailing and keep it on track. And then it's basically, yeah, we need to just look for more ways to keep the community going. But look, it's just the changes that have happened in the last 4+ years are absolutely phenomenal. And I'm always inspired by people that keep coming in and saying how much they've done and how they've got neighbours on board. And, you know, there's so many positives coming out of it. So big thanks to everybody that's been involved, and I think I've done my time, and I guess I can stop sharing the screen.
Brilliant, Mike. Thanks very much. You'll see in the chat there's quite a lot of very positive feedback, understandably, about the project, and some great key learnings that looks like we could develop into a model really for how to tackle a community-wide problem with all of those, you know, spokes happening all at the different times, and that social learning. It's wonderful stuff. We'll come to some questions on that a bit later, and we're running on time. We want to stay on time. We'll move to Jenny Dewing from the Blackwood Environment Society at Bridgetown, and Jenny's presentation is about micropropagation to improve native species propagation from their tissue culture project. Over to you, Jenny.
Thank you and good morning. I'll just see if I can do this share screen. That one. Yes, I'm the treasurer of the Blackwood Environment Society and one of the nursery volunteers. So this little project is a Blackwood Environment Society project. And it's run by the Bridgetown Community Landcare Nursery. We've been going about 30 years. We collect local seed and we grow about 20,000 local plants every year for re-veg projects and for people's gardens. And we're always trying to expand our range available. We've got a very part-time manager. She works about 10 hours a week, and about 19 wonderful volunteers who do the bulk of the work. So for quite some time, we've been wanting to expand the range of plants that we offer. And we noticed that there's a few things that are missing in our re-veg. Examples are things like hair sedge, Teteria capillaris, which has now changed its name to Nerastylus. That's one that's quite common in upland vegetation, but we don't see it in plant lists. And what we really wanted to do was to get some of these difficult to germinate plants into our nursery and to grow them in sufficient quantities that we would be able to sort of create a demand and supply that demand. So we couldn't do this without having a mentor. So for us, we have Dr. Chris Newell, who's the Chief Plant Tissue Culture Expert for Plant Right in Perth. He loves coming down to Baling Up, and he agreed to be our technical support and mentor. So basically, Chris helped us design the project, create the scope of it, and then approach Lottery West for funding. We've got funding. Took quite a bit of persuasion to get Lottery West to agree to it, but BS provided the money for the purchasing the tissue culture lab, which is a seed container. We paid for the fit out, the insulation, the lighting, the electrics, and all of that. And Lottery West paid for equipment, chemicals, benches, all that sort of stuff. So here it is. This is it's basically, you can see there's a little 20-foot high cube sea container with a little alcove next to it. And when you go in that small space, we've managed to put in, there's a media preparation area where the, chemicals are managed. There's laminar flow cabinets at the end where the subculturing is done. And at the other end, there are the culture benches where the cultures are managed. So Chris Newell came down. He has trained us, spent many hands-on hours sort of teaching us the techniques that we need and constantly providing technical support to help us to sort of achieve this. It's been a long project, taken a few years to get it up and going, and now a few years to actually learn the techniques. So essentially what we're doing is what's called embryo rescue. We take seeds, we try to germinate them, and if they don't germinate, we actually have to cut the seeds and expose the embryos to media. So just quickly giving you an example using sword's edge, Lepidosperma effusum as an example. We try to collect from a range of provenances. So we'd like 5 to 7 different provenances, so we get that genetic variation. We bring the seed in, we've got to wash, bleach and treat it to try and reduce the fungal contamination. We initiate it into little tubes with media. We can put it in like a wine fridge at 16 degrees for a few weeks. That helps to prime the seed and encourage germination. If it won't germinate, we've got to take it out. We cut it to expose the embryo, and then we reculture it back into the tubes. And eventually we get some germination and some growth. And this is the stage 2 where we are wanting to get those plants to bulk up and branch so that we can then, create more cultures from them. Stage 3, we take them into an IBA medium, which promotes root growth. And then from there, they go out into the nursery in a misting bench with big hoods, and we very carefully acclimatise them into the nursery. And there's our final product, which is, there. There's the final product in the nursery. It's been a long, slow process learning the techniques, and also because we're picking difficult species, it's quite, you have to learn the tricks that belong with each species, and you've got to try and crack what it is you need to do to get that species to germinate and grow. So it's been an exciting project. It's required diligence and persistence and a lot of technical support, but we've been through the whole process. We know how to do it. And now we're trying to expand the number of species that we can, try. So it's exciting, and we're not really sure where it will end, but our hope is that we'll be able to grow some species that we can't grow at the moment and get them out into re-veg and get people wanting to put them in their re-veg. And I think that's, there's a couple of other, there's some bossias, and yeah, we've got a macarena. There's a few different species that we're fiddling with at the moment. That's probably all I'll say for now. Yeah, thank you.
Wonderful, Jenny. That's a really inspiring story of local science and perseverance. You've obviously had to do lots of trials to work out what works for each of the species. That's fabulous. Thank you for that. I'm going to throw to the questions now that have gone into the chat, and you might be thinking about a question for Jenny. I saw some people furiously taking notes while you were talking. And we're going to go to Bruce's question for Katrina about the tree guards. Katrina, did you see that one come up about how successful those cardboard guards were?
I didn't see it, no, sorry. Yeah, we've been using them for a couple of years now. We're finding them pretty good. They do start to lose their shape after about a year in the ground, but often, you can find that you can take them away after a year, depending on how mature the seedlings are becoming anyway. They even after a lot of rain, they do, they've been very mixed. Some of them really still hold their shape, whereas others do sort of start collapsing, particularly I think after not this year's planting, but last year's planting, there was a lot of rain. And yeah, some of them sort of started collapsing in on themselves. But they sort of still were like firm. So you could sort of prop them back up again, with some bamboo stakes and things. Yeah, so we've enjoyed them, and it's just nice, particularly when you're planting along river areas, to not be using the plastic in case there's a flooding event and they all get washed away. At least it's only cardboard washing into the rivers and not plastic.
Excellent, thank you. There was a question for Mike from Bruce about the best techniques for monitoring. Mike.
Yeah, thanks for that, Bruce. We do a three-way monitoring with photo points, with vegetation transects, where we really just look at foliage cover of natives versus weeds. So it's fairly general, and we do density mapping. And I'm not sure if you remember that slide with three photos from Point Road, which in the national park, Lewin Naturalist National Park. Those were density mapping, density maps, and that was a result of walking through cell by cell, 20 by 20 metre cells, and recording density, and then doing that year by year. So we've just completed year 4 density mapping. So that's the three ways we do. The three things we focus on for the monitoring, and it's very important to show that along, the photos and the maps, and give the stats is really critical to the work.
Great, Mike, thank you. And a question from Keith Bradby, which is basically asking, do you think if there'd been some regulatory basis for environmental weed control in place, what that would have done to your ARAM program? What would the impact of that have been?
Yeah, thanks very much, Keith, and thanks for your all your encouragement and support along the way as well. It's really important. Just for everybody's reference, at the moment, arum lilies are a declared pest. However, they have an exemption status, which is basically means that compliance regulation doesn't happen. So it's the way I've read that, the way I understand that is that it's too hard, too expensive for state government to do anything about. So yeah, in theory it's declared pest, but it's exempt, so there's really nothing happening. That would make a huge difference, just to have that known as a, you know, listed as a declared pest would have to make a huge difference. We've just provided from Nature Conservation, Margaret River region, some input in the community survey from regarding the BAM Act, and that was one point we really highlighted. So yeah, very good point. Thanks, Keith.
Thanks, Mike. Any further questions from anyone? There's nothing else in the chat that I picked up. If I missed something, please jump in, put your hand up, or just speak. And if there's not, we're going to take advantage of the fact that we're a little bit ahead of time, and we will take a short comfort break from now for 5 minutes till 11:08. Just as we're leaving the room for a moment, I want to share with you that Bruce, who's been asking questions, who's been our co-deputy chair and committee member and is also on the NLN Council with us in the national team. Bruce has recently won an award. I'm going to embarrass you, Bruce, and share that he's a volunteer with the WA Landcare Network, obviously the Bicton Environmental Action Group and Friends of Kenhurst Park, and runs his own small business called Trees Australia. Well, on Friday, he won the Dr. Nick Dunlop Conservation Science Award for the work he's done over the years with 450,000 seedlings being planted by 6,000 school students. So a big clap for you, Bruce. Well done. And look, that's just such interesting presentations, and it's great to have that practice knowledge and wisdom in the room. We're going to come back to those in a little while. So if you can all be back online, if you want to join us for the AGM in 5 minutes time at 11:09, if you want to leave it and come back for the next round of presentations around about 11:40, if you link back in then, you'll hear the next round of speakers. Thank you. See you soon. Okay, the room's slowly starting to refill.
Everyone's excited about coming in for the AGM. Feel the tangible.
Is that what's
electric.
going on, Mick?
That's
I've
right,
wondered
it's
how
electric.
what was really crashing people's enjoyment.
Whilst just before we start, a big shout out to Colma and Mary for the most cutest profile pic you've got there. Great work. A little.
That's having a good hair day, I think.
Yep. Very good. Okay. Well, without any further ado, just checking that we will have quorum with everybody returning virtually. I would suggest that we do. Yes, Caroline, cool. So I would like to start the AGM. It's just flicked to 11:11. So we've got our AGM in accordance with the agenda, which you will have all received through information package via email. So welcome to everyone for the 2022 WA Landcare Network AGM. Caroline will be putting the links to all of our documents in the chat. So if you haven't got them on hand, you should be able to follow the links. Kylie and Caroline will be taking the minutes of the meeting. At the moment, we currently have apologies from Stephen Jones from the Friends of Yonka Burl, Freya Spencer from the Gillamai Centre, the Intrepid Landcare team, Helen Watkins, our outgoing treasurer and committee member. Is anybody aware of any other apologies they would like to tender?
Yes, Mick, I'd like to tender apologies for Pierre Bouvet, our committee member who has renominated, and Julian Sharp is a late apology who's also renominated.
Okay. Rightio. So moving on to our point 2, acceptance of previous minutes. We will be accepting the draft minutes of the 2021 annual meeting held on the 19th of November 2021 at the Kalamunda Community Centre. There's an attendance list attached if you need to check if you were there. Of course, you can only agree to them if you were there. So
Sorry, Mick, Helen from Moore Catchment Council and our current treasurer and committee member has just joined.
Oh, fantastic.
So
hello,
we
Helen.
had Helena's apology, but thank you, Helen.
Perfect. See you there, Helen.
Hi.
Brilliant. So we're just about to ask for a member to put a motion to accept the minutes as a true and accurate record of that meeting. Can I have someone nominate, please? I can see Bruce waving. If anyone is waving without a camera, please feel free to turn your camera on. I won't assume that Sabian laughing is you seconding, but can I call for a seconder to that motion, please, from the floor? Helen, I can see you, so thank you very much. Okay, so all in favour or anyone against? Fantastic. So that motion is carried. So thank you very much for that. Moving on to our reports for 2021. The chairperson's report. My report I've prepared in the annual report. And if you haven't read that, just a reminder, there's a link in the chat. Very happy to take questions now or anytime. But essentially, I'm super proud of how the Landcare Network has performed this year, this financial year that we're reporting on. We've had a great team. We've had some great successes and some really good growth. And I think we're continuing to support and encourage everyone to understand the value of Landcare. And I think with a penchant to rambling on, I'll leave it at that. If you want to read every little bit of my report, please do. In terms of accepting that, I think it's just a statement there. I've also got a financial and audit report. Helen, how would you like to run that? Doing that a little bit on the fly.
Sorry about that. It was a bit late and I just wasn't sure whether I was going to get here or not. So yeah, there was links in the on the website to the auditor's report. On my report, I've put mine up late this morning. So just this will be my last financial report as treasurer. I've enjoyed the last 8 years as on the WALN committee and my time as treasurer. And it's been a pleasure to watch the organisation grow with just a few hiccups over the years. We've sort of run out of funding at one stage and a few other things like that. So it was, but it's all been part of the learning curve and finding our feet and getting us on the way. Just a couple of things I've pulled out of the auditor's report. The National Landcare Network that we received 98,918 last year, of which 43,598 has been expended and 55,330 is carried forward into this financial year. The purpose of this funding is to give the WA Landcare the ability to and capacities to resource the function of the state peak body. We expended the carryover figure of 63,360 from the previous year. On the WA Landcare Network retained earnings, there's 62,196 of that. That includes 25,227, which is the WA Landcare Trust money, which is old money from about I think the 90s, but that was passed on to us from the state NRM office. The core business funding is finishing. Well, it has finished now. There's still a few accounts and bits and pieces to come in. And so that's at the end of last year, there was still a balance of 130,710. And it's been carried forward to this year to expend the final of that funding. The coastal funding, we received some money from Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage for the coastal funding. This was to help the coastal network get up and running, and the total grant received was $18,000, and we'd only just received that before the end of the financial year, so most of that will be expended in this, well, it will be expended in this financial year, but it's mainly to do with website development. So the others, if there's any questions on anything, I will endeavour to answer them. Alison was going to try and be on today, but doesn't look like she is on, so so if anyone's got any questions, and I better probably bring the chat screen up.
There's no questions at the moment, although Caroline has dropped the links into the chat there. So it sounds like
Can we have a motion to accept the Chair's and the Treasurer's report for 2022, please, from someone?
Yeah, I have to move the financial and audit report because that's my responsibility.
Thanks,
so I've
Helen.
got to remove, I will move those if there's no questions on those.
Yep, and I see Sabian's happy to second that one. So if we can then all in favour. All right, and feel free to yell out if you're not. Before we do that, I do want to echo some amazing work, and thanks for you, Helen, the amazing work you've done. It's been like forever since I've ever known the Landcare Network, and you know, you will be missed. It's been a great amount of work that you've done on behalf of the Landcare Network and the National Landcare Network, as I think you were even chairing them for a time. So when it comes to touching on how much do people on the eastern seaboard understand or appreciate the West. It's people putting the effort in like yourself and bringing that West Aussie flavour to the NLN. It really helps. Hopefully, once you get a chance to take a breath, hopefully we'll see you again in other ways. But I just wanted to add my personal thanks to you for all that hard work that you've done. And I see that there's a couple of comments there. There's something from Keith and lots of nodding heads in the room. So before we make that an accepted motion, huge thanks to you, Helen, and look forward to catching up with you very soon. All right.
Thanks, Mick.
It's a pleasure. So yes, I'd like to then move that we accept the financial and audit report. Just checking I have no other reports to add. Chairperson's report, finance and audit, and I think that's the lot. Okay, that brings us to point 4, which is the election of the WA Landcare Network Committee of Management. So in accordance with the Constitution, Rule 10 and its sub-rules, I will now vacate the... hang on a second. That's not right. I read the wrong paragraph. Sub-rules nominations have been called from all of the above positions. Nominations received by the 28th of November include the chair. No one's nominated for the chair. That's going to be problematic. Deputy Chair Bruce Ivers, representing the Bicton Environmental Action Group. Secretary John Holly, representing Gondwana Link. And at the moment, no nominations for Treasurer. And I'm looking at every single one of you out there. We also have committee nominations from Julian Sharp, representing the Southern Forest Community Landcare, and Pierre Beauvoir, representing the WA Coastal and Marine Community Network. And lastly, Monty House, representing the South Coast Natural Resource Management NRM. So now I'm going to officially vacate the chair, and Jacqueline will kindly perform the duties of the returning officer whilst a chair is appointed.
Thank you, Mick. We do have a nomination from the floor for chair, and who would that be, Mick?
Yes, Mick thought he'd sent his nomination in, and foolishly, on the secretary's reminder only a few days ago. So look, I would like to nominate to be the chairperson again. I get great joy out of working with all of the groups across Western Australia and seeing the work that is done. I feel like if you didn't want me to hang around, you're all forward and upfront enough to let me know. And that would be, of course, a precursor to you making a nomination yourself. I do feel, though, that there is a good opportunity to have turnover for organisations. I would love to encourage everyone to consider what they can do to give back to the Landcare Network, not just by considering nominating for the committee, but also if you do know or think you've got the capacity or the skills to nominate as the treasurer, to please consider doing that. It's very rewarding. It's not as onerous as often we think, but I do appreciate that lots of people wear lots of hats. That's my segue to the reason I was delayed in getting my report, my nomination in. But look, it's been great. Our growth has been fantastic. Our team has been great, and we've managed to achieve so much in the annual, the financial year 21-22. We're really looking forward to doing more of that in 22, 23 and beyond. And I have, I've got a great faith in the team and our organisation to keep doing great things for Landcare in WA and making sure they hear us over in Canberra. And again, I will cut myself short, but yes, I'd like to make a nomination for the chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other nominations from the floor, please? I have notification from John Holly that in writing that there are no proxies for today. So there's no proxies in place. There's no other votes in place for the chair. Given that, can I ask for someone to nominate Mick Davis as chair for the WA Landcare Network, please? Moved by Bruce Ivers. We'll have a seconder, please.
I'll second it, Jack.
Plenty there.
Mhm.
Monty, Sabian, Colmer, whoever, choose which one. Thank you. And carried? All four? Show of hands? Excellent. So congratulations, Mick. You return to the chair of WALN for another year, and I'll hand the floor back to you for the next part of the meeting.
Thank you very much, Jack, and thank you to everybody who is so supportive. Rightio. So, can I please then have a member put the motion to accept the nomination of Bruce Ivers as our Deputy Chair?
Do we
Yes,
have?
I see Sabian's hand has gone up. And can I have a seconder, please, to that? I see Monty. Oh, it was close between Monty and Colmer. But Monty's dancing a little bit more there. So, Colmer and Mary, sorry. So we'll have there Monty. So all those in favour? Perfect. So then I will see that motion carried. Thank you. On to the secretary. Can I please have a member put a motion to accept the nomination of John Holly as secretary of the WA Landcare Network? Oh, now Jim, you scratched your eye in an auction. You'd buy the farm there. No, I see Helen is actually confirming that. So could I have a seconder, please, for John as secretary? Bruce. Thank you very much, Bruce. All in favour to see John return secretary? Fabulous. I will then see the motion carried. Could I please have a member put a motion to accept the nominations of committee members, including the following: Julian Sharp, representing Southern Forests Community Landcare. So we do this all as a block, everybody. Pierre Beauvoir, representing the Coastal Marine Coastal Network. And Monty House, representing South Coast NRM. Okay, I see some nods. Yes, Luke Bailey moving the motion. I think I saw Sabian there, Sabian Wild from Perth NRM. Oh, and David as well. I see your hand up. So,
yourself, I'd just like to nominate Sabian Wild as a committee member on the floor.
Yes, okay. Oh, there we go. That was my next one. We do have that. So yes, we'll add Sabian to that group. So can we have someone? Yes, Bruce, and seconding Sabian returning. I see now. I can't. Mary Colmer. Cool. Perfect. Okay. Now, before we go, is it from the floor? Can I call for any other nominations? Please feel free to stand up and be excited to represent your group and your state at the WA Landcare Network as a committee member. I'll have to work on being more convincing, I see. But look, that concludes, scrolling here, the election of committee members. Thank you very much to everybody. The new committee will meet soon to appoint the vacant executive committee positions. So that looks to be the treasurer, and all our members will be notified. Okay, we're getting close. Confirmation of Landcare Network, WA Landcare Network bank account signatories. So currently the bank account signatories are John Holly, myself, Joe Ludbrook and Helen Watkins. So with Joe has passed on the deputyship to Bruce, and I should actually, I have failed to mention Jo and thanking her for her service as the Deputy Chairperson, Jack, if you could please note that. Jo, I think, has moved to the Eastern States for a brief period. With committee members changing, there will be a change to our signatories. So we will need to remove Helen and Jo and retain myself and John, and adding the Executive Officer, Jack. So just notifying everybody that we're making those changes for our signatories. We have a bit of a process issue here, or a process to deal with. So in 2023, we will see on the agenda for the AGM the formal. In 2023, we'll see the process of formal appointment of an auditor through a standard EOI process. And in point 7, we have, in future AGMs, we'll be adding that to as a standing item in the AGM agenda. So just notifying everyone that we will be doing that shortly, and in the future we will cover that item in the agenda. Okay. Right, well, that is officially the end of our AGM.
Wait, we've got a call for general business, Mick.
Oh, my apologies, Jack.
And Helen's got something to say as well.
Thank you very much. So call for general business, Helen, please.
Okay, just a point of order on the signatories.
Yes.
For Jack to become a signatory, she has to have dedicated authority to be able to do that, and it has to be put through as a motion for so that she's allowed to use that, because to do that. Yeah.
Of course. All right. So we can do that here, though, can't we? We don't have to wait
Yes, we
till
can.
next year.
Yeah. No, we do it now, but it has to be done. It's a process that needs to be done, and it's a lawful process. So.
Okay. Cool. Thank you, Helen. You sure you don't want to stay as treasurer? I mean, I will stay
until I've got that what I've got to do sorted out.
Cool. All right, so we'll go into that now. So as general business, can I seek a motion from the floor to provide Jacqueline delegated authority to be placed on the signatories for the bank accounts? Is there anyone who wants to make that a tidier motion? No, I see Bruce and Keith with their hands up. So I have Bruce making motion and Keith to second, please. Brilliant. Okay. Any other general business? Lovely. Well,
sorry, Mick, do you have to take a hand vote on that motion?
Probably. Let's do it anyway. Helen's nodding. So can I have all those in favour? Yes, I see lots of hands up. Thank you. And so in that case, I move the motion to have Jack added as a delegated authority to sign for our account. And just a great example of how a community of people can help these things happen, because, you know, sometimes I forget about process. Yes, Comma?
I just wanted to say on behalf of all the members, thanks to all the people that have been on the committee for the last year, because I know about the effort and energy that goes into it, and also to the staff and project officers that have supported it as well. So thank you.
No, thank you, Comma. It is great to have such support, and we really appreciate that. Just minuting that one. Okay, as I flick back to the screen, does anyone else have any general business? No. Okay. Well, in that case, I'll
hang on,
close
Mick. We have Luke Bailey from South Coast NRM.
Sorry, Luke.
No worries. Just quick. Congratulations, Mick, on your reappointment. And I just wanted to also reiterate, as the CEO of South Coast NRM,
the value that we see in working with our Landcare groups and how it's going to be a key focus of us moving forward. So just wanted to reiterate the comments that Louise made earlier and express our deep and sincere commitment to Landcare and Landcare communities. Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Luke. And you know, I feel like the feeling is mutual, so that's a good thing for all of us and for our community, you know. Okay. Third time lucky. I will now close the AGM at 11:35 a.m. and I will hand over to Jack for part 2 of our Celebrating Landcare Champions presentations. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Mick. Thank you to all the committee, old and new. I'm a bit conscious that we're probably a tiny bit ahead of when we said we'd be coming back in for those who were wanting to join us. But I think we probably need to move ahead anyway so that we've got a bit of elasticity around our other presentations. I noticed, oh, I did notice, but I can't see her now. Nicole, are you still in the room?
Yes.
Ah, there you are. Sorry, there you are. I saw your picture come up. Thank you. So Nicole's presenting to us today on behavioural change approaches to conserve the Western ringtail possum. Nicole is with GeoCatch, and this has been a fascinating program to watch the behaviour change paradigm that sits behind the preservation of the Western ringtail possum in terms of encouraging the community to do things differently. So thank you, Nicole. Over to you.
Okay, thank you. I'll just see if I can do this. Entire screen.
Anything I can help you there?
I'm just trying to share my screen, sorry.
That's all right.
And it's not coming, it comes up, but then it doesn't allow me to click on.
Okay, Caroline. Well, Kylie, have we got the opportunity to assist there?
Don't have Nicole's presentation here.
No, hang on, I might be doing it. It might, hang on, it's looking good. There we go. Can you see that?
Well done, it's coming through. Thank you.
You got it?
McLeod's daughters.
Okay, excellent. Oh, yeah, that is the correct screen. Yes. Okay, so I'll get started. I'm guessing a lot of you are quite familiar with Miles Pollard. So Miles lives in Dunsborough and he's been instrumental, would like to say, or the missing piece of a jigsaw for behavioural change in the Southwest. So I'm going to elaborate on that a bit more. So Geograph Bay has no shortage of celebrities. We have John Butler, we've got Ben Stratton, we've got surfing champions, Bronte Macaulay, and we have Miles Pollard, who resides in Dunsborough. So my name is Nicole Lincoln and I'm working for GeoCatch, and I've been working on a behavioural change program. This is in its 5th year now, and its slogan is Pets Away, Possums Play. So it came about because the Western ringtail possum, as many of you are aware, is critically endangered, and we have a large population still remaining in the Busselton-Dunsborough area, and quite a lot of that population shares backyards with residents. So we had funding to implement a responsible pet ownership project, which, as I said, we're now in our 5th year. And the idea was to look at the threat of pets sharing backyards. So we acknowledge that there are many other threats to the Western ringtail possum. However, the funding that we were provided with was for responsible pet ownership. So that was where Pets Away, Possums Play was born. And there's some imagery there that perhaps you've seen or haven't seen. We started off looking at it from the wildlife sort of perspective, the wildlife lover, but quickly learnt that really our audience that we needed to target was obviously the cat owner, and they don't necessarily always love wildlife, though many of them do as well. So changed our messaging to also include my cat can't roam, it's safe at home. So really looking at sort of messaging about keeping your cat safe, and in doing so, you're keeping wildlife safe as well. So it's been quite a journey. So behavioural change projects, as you're probably aware, require time and lots of effort and lots of money, and it's about repetition. So we chose one message with the community, on which we had an expert panel as well, in which we voted on what one message we could message to the community that would benefit the Western ringtail possum, and then in turn obviously benefits other wildlife and pets as well. And that was keeping your pets contained, and that was aimed at both the cat and the dog. In the early days, our messaging, as you can see up the top there, was pets away, possums play, keep cats and dogs inside at night. So it was originally at night because we were focusing solely on the Western ringtail possum, and then with feedback we realised, well, that was a bit limiting and quite blinkered. We needed to extend it to 24-hour containment. So we've dropped the inside at night bit of the messaging. And
sorry,
yeah,
we can only see your first slide.
Oh, they haven't moved on.
No.
Damn.
You need to share the slideshow, maybe.
Yeah, okay. I'll go back. So you can only see Miles.
Yep, we can only see the.
So what do you suggest? I go.
Just share screen again.
Okay.
Wait a sec. First of all, run the presentation. And then when you share screen, select the one that's got the full screen.
Okay, so I'll just go right back. Now I don't even, oh, end show, there we go. So run the presentation. Can you see, have there been any changes?
You haven't got your screen shared at the moment.
Must have dropped out. Let's try again. What can you see now?
You can see the second slide now.
Okay, can you see the third now?
Yes.
Okay, I might just leave it like this and go through like that. That might be easier. All right, so I'm down to here now. I'll just get rid of some of that writing. Okay, so where was I? So I think I was just saying that you need to have a lot of different messaging. So we spent, I guess, the first year or two coming up with a whole lot of different ways to message throughout the community. And originally we had a workshop where we actually got all the community and agencies together to try, and a facilitator to work out yeah, how they wanted to deliver this in the community. So it was comforting to know that we were doing actually what had come from the community rather than us alone. Okay, has that changed to the next slide? Can you see a vet there with a cat?
We can.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. So we also did a survey, probably in, I think it was the second year, where we surveyed as many pet owners as we could. We got about 500 people respond, and we wanted to find out what they needed. So we found out what the barriers were, and then we found out what they needed to change their behaviour. And the top three runners were that they really needed to fully understand that cats could live a happy, healthy life indoors, and that it wasn't cruel locking a cat up or containing a cat. Obviously, they needed a cat run or a space to have a catio, and they really wanted help funding a catio. In response to that, has that changed slides? Have you got the new slide there?
Yep.
Yeah, excellent. All right, if they don't start changing, let me know. So in response to that, we well, Geocatch loves having a workshop. So we organised kitty cat school, which was like puppy school. We got lots of the local vets involved. Obviously, they actually have our target audience, the cat owners and the dog owners. So we really needed to partner with the local vets. They've been fairly supportive. However, a lot more work needs to be done there. I do think that this is probably something we're pushing more than them. They have other priorities, and not that it's not their priority, but you know, we have one focus here, whereas they've got many focuses in their practice, and they are totally and utterly busy all the time. So whatever help they've given us, we're very appreciative of. However, we do need stronger relationships there. We tried to run a catio bus tour, which is like open gardens, where we put people on a bus and took them around to catios that were in the community, and very surprised to find out that there actually are some very elaborate catios throughout Geograph Bay, which was promising. And then we had a design workshop too, where people could come along and learn how to design and build a catio. COVID really did get in the way of those events, and they weren't as well attended as we had hoped. And then looking at the dog, so we spent the first few years looking at the cat, and then we had to switch to the dog, because obviously you get cat and dog owners and they can be quite different. And we did not want to be perceived as just putting the whole focus on the cat or the dog. Interestingly, the statistics for injury and harm to the Western ringtail possum is actually higher from the dog than the cat. However, it's much easier to get those statistics from a dog, because when a possum is killed in a backyard by a dog, the owner is there to see it, and you know, often they take these animals into the vets and it gets recorded there. However, when a cat kills, it often isn't in the backyard, so therefore it does not become a statistic. So yeah, there's a bias there as well. So when we asked the dog owners what they needed to change behaviour, they said that they needed to know that it was going to benefit the wildlife. They needed dog toilet training, so that because we were asking dog owners to keep their dogs in at night, obviously not all day, and to train their dogs to leave possums alone. So we then responded to that by having possum avoidance training workshops for dogs in the area. We got our local dog trainer in that was well known and had a lot of credit in the community, and she ran sessions for dog owners, and the dogs came along, teaching them how to leave a possum, and then teaching these pet owners how to set up your backyard to so that possums and dogs could coexist. They were very well attended, so we're just continually running those now every quarter pretty much, until the numbers drop off. In addition to that, we supported the Pets Away Possums Play with a lot of resources. So we now have a comprehensive Pets Away Possums Play page where dog and cat owners can go to. They can find out how to design a catio, who to call in the local area if they need a service, all the law and legislation, facts. I must mention too that Southwest Catchment Council also have a really good responsible pet ownership page. So there's a lot of links from our page to theirs as well. And the City of Busselton now link their cat registration page and dog registration page to our Pets Away Possums Play page. So that's a good partnership too. All right, I'll quickly go through. So, as I said, we're always looking for new ideas of how to message, and our latest one this year was inspired by Earth Hour and Pets Inside to Save Lives. So, on the 11th of April this year, my goodness, on National Pet Day, we did Pets Night In, which, very similar to Earth Hour, is a snapshot. It's one annual event where we ask pet owners to keep their pets inside for the night. And this is where Miles Pollard comes in. He jumped on board as our celebrity. And I must say, we actually did when we look back on our posts that we do for social media, our most highest achieving post is actually with Miles and a dog. And this seems to be a theme throughout. If we've got a celebrity and a pet, or a person and a pet, they're always our highest viewed posts on social media. So Pets Night In was born. The vets got on board as well, and they set up displays in their foyers with Miles, basically asking people to make a pledge online. So really simple, asking the community to pledge their name, what pet they've got, suburb and email if they like. And the idea is we're trying to create, and this is part of behavioural change as well, making it a social norm. So the more other people see people with a catio or keeping their pets inside at the right times, the more it becomes a social norm, as have keep cups or picking up your dog poo. Like, you know, it's a social norm now, which we would like to create, keeping pets inside too as a social norm. We also provided a selfie frame, which I must admit was a bit clunky. That was a bit hard. We actually had to do it physically for people. Next year when we run it, we hope that they can just slip their photo in themselves. However, we didn't have the technology or the funds to do that. So we were asking them to put a photo of themselves with a pet inside and then to flood their social media of this as well. So Miles obviously got on board as well, and this was our best reach that we got. Almost 40,000 people via social media saw this post. It doesn't mean that they necessarily commented or liked it, but they saw it. So that was a bit of a win for us. And then with this, we wanted to then report back to the community how many people got on board, how many pets were saved, and an estimation of what wildlife was saved that night. Now, I need to mention again, we're not advocating just at night. So even though we're saying pets night in, we're actually saying 24-hour containment for the cat. Like Earth Hour, it's just a snapshot. It's a fun event. It's an awareness raising campaign. So it's really hard working out how many, how do you estimate how many wildlife were saved? So we got Murdoch University on board and got them to do a bit of a literature review on what we could safely say for how many cats or dogs kept inside, how many pets were saved. The problem is there hasn't been many local studies done on the impact of cats and dogs. It's largely sort of ad hoc and the only thing we're really collecting well, I guess, is through the ward system, which is through SWIC. And that's when a carer, a wildlife carer, or someone takes the animal to a vet, they then have a database where they can record the injury, whether it was a dog or a cat. However, some of the wildlife carers aren't doing it due to just being flat out, and sometimes things are too busy in the vets that they can't record every admission. So once again, it's only it's a snapshot, and there's some holes in it as well. So we could safely say that 64 dog owners kept their dog inside that night, and 25 cat owners pledged to keep their cat inside. So obviously then you get an easy 89 pets were saved, because we are focusing on, animals being safe as well, pets. From that formula I was talking about, we came up with that we could safely say 26 wildlife were saved that night. I know that doesn't sound like very many, and I guess ideally it would have been nicer if there were more people that got online and pledged. But for a first try, we were happy with that some people got on board, and that we got to do lots of social media and media releases in the local papers around that, creating a bit more noise about the issues. So 100% of the people that took part said they would like to see it run out again in 2023. So next year we've got funding through SWIC to run this event again, Pets Night In, and we would welcome anyone from the regions to also jump on board and collaborate and do the same, because the more areas that do it, the greater publicity and the greater awareness, as you are aware. All right, I think I've gone over time, but I'm about to wrap it up. So what's next for us is the catio rebate scheme. Now, you would have probably heard that Southwest Catchment Council have already introduced this to the Greater Bunbury region, and it has had great success. I saw recently on the ABC article on Facebook that I think they announced that 34 cat owners have taken up the rebate, which means that 34 catios have been built in the last few months, or in the process of being built, in the Greater Bunbury region. So that's amazing. They get $200 towards materials or a contractor to come in and build a catio to keep their cat contained. So that's, a huge amount of wildlife that are instantly going to be saved from harm and injury. So we'll be running that in Busselton. We've got it all ready to go. We're going to launch it in the new year, and then we'll also back it up with a catio building workshop at Bunnings in early February. And the picture of the farmer there is just to get you thinking, because when we did the barbecue test a few years ago about providing money for a catio, people really turned their noses up about it. But the reality is, it's, to me anyway, no different to providing money for a farmer to build a fence to protect their waterways and their biodiversity. So we do that, and we give them, you know, thousands of dollars per kilometre. And with the catio rebate, they're getting $200 towards it. And it is working, as it's proving to be a very good incentive. So is Miles Pollard the missing piece to the jigsaw for behavioural change and saving the Western ringtail possum? He is, but he's not the only piece to the jigsaw puzzle. So we rely on a lot of collaboration and partnerships in the local community, and we're very grateful for their participation. Alrighty, thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. That was fabulous. And you'll see some really positive, supportive chat coming through there, and some questions for a bit later on. Again, we're seeing the power of social learning in your program. Now, I see that from SWIC, we have Pete Clifton, hopefully has joined us. Are you there, Pete?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yeah, thank you so much for coming along and presenting on environmental DNA, a powerful tool for food security. Over to you.
Okay, thanks. I'll just share my screen. Can you see that?
Yep.
Are you seeing the whole screen there?
No, we're seeing the screen and the objectives section.
And the notes. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hang on. Maybe I'll just try the other one. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah, well, okay. Well, I've been pulled into this one at the last moment. This was, I think I was originally asked to do a presentation, and I said I won't be here. I'll be up at World Soil Day, and then Linda put her hand up to do it, and then I decided not to go to World Soil Day, and I let Linda know this morning that I was here, and she said, "Oh, because I'm in Margaret River, and I don't think I'm going to find a nice quiet spot to do this presentation from." So I said, well, given that she's my boss, and I'm only in the role since July, I put my hand up, and I might be putting my head on the chopping block here. But
Good
anyway,
on you, Pete. We love the flexibility of land carers.
Thank you. Now, so the eDNA project. So this is a project that's funded under the Smart Farming Partnerships National Landcare Program. It's a partnership with Curtin University and Horticulture Innovation and Edith Cowan University. And what I'm presenting today is basically the results of Josh Kestel's PhD study he's from Curtin University. And it's basically a presentation that he's provided before, which the aim was to identify which pollinators visit avocado flowers using environmental eDNA. So I'm going to have to get used to how these slides actually appear. So why eDNA? Environmental DNA is trace DNA left by organisms on substrate. So in this case, we're looking at DNA left by insects on flowers, for example, flies or bees that are left behind. And the idea is to collect the flower and amplify the insect DNA using insect primers. And sequences are then compared to online reference databases, where we can then identify what species has been to the plant or to the flower. So why avocados? Avocados are native to South America, so over there they're pollinated by stingless wasps, but we don't have them here. So we obviously have the native bees, native wasps, flies, and the European honeybee. So the question that comes up in orchards is, what are the most significant pollinators here? And this can have a big impact, you know, if we can find out what the answer is, this can have a big impact on the management. For example, I guess if you've got in particular insects that you want to protect, then you might, you know, need to develop an integrated pest management strategy around those insects to make sure any chemicals you use are least damaging to those populations. Also looking at native vegetation restoration around the orchard. And another aspect that we're actually looking at as well is inter-row cover crops, so planting specific flowers in the orchard to benefit those pollinators. So who is dominant? The process that we looked at was to see when pollinators were present and also where they were present. So were they present on the edges near native vegetation or more towards the middle of the orchard? And so what also happens if the native vegetation is flowering? So is that a good thing? Are they going to sort of be present when native vegetation is flowering and then happily come over into the orchard, or is that actually going to keep them away? So there's quite a few questions involved. I'm just looking at the slide to see if there's anything I've missed. Yeah, it was important to get that variation in time and space. There goes the bee, and I haven't followed that. Flying around to the different questions. And I think he's all done. So the question is, yes, so is environmental DNA able to determine flower visiting insects for Hass avocado trees in 2 orchards in southwest WA? So the first one was on Doug Powell's farm, just south of Manjimup, and the second one on Ben Dotty avocados in Pemberton. So the study 1 compared environmental DNA with 2 tried and tested methods, just to see how much confidence we had in this process of looking at eDNA. So those 2 methods were camera monitoring or photo monitoring and pan traps. Now I'm not sure if this is actually going to, no, it's not going to play. So basically that was a video, and one of the things that Josh sort of pointed out when he came down to have a look at the pollinators was that there was very high diversity of pollinators in orchards. It was very active and alive with all sorts of flies and bees and moths. So it was a, you know, could be a huge refuge for pollinators. So how the 3 methods compared. The camera traps tended to pick up large things, but with a low diversity, so they didn't pick up everything. The pan traps obviously picked up a lot of insects, so just about everything that would have been in the orchard. However, we don't know which ones of these were actually visiting the flowers or whether they were just there for other reasons. For example, grasshoppers obviously aren't a pollinator. And then, yeah, so the eDNA picked up other things like gnats and tended to pick up small things. But I guess the promising part of it was that the eDNA picked up the 2 most common groups of insects that were found in pan traps and in camera traps, which were the European honeybee and the hoverfly. So there was good agreement between those. So yeah, the outcome really is that we believe that eDNA can be used to measure flowering visiting insects. The other part of the study, which unfortunately Josh hasn't finished, he hasn't finished his PhD as yet, but it was really looking at how the visiting insects varied across different landscapes. So obviously the 2 main landscapes that orchards tend to occur next to agricultural land and remnant bushland. So it was looking at, yeah, setting up pan traps the methodology was to set up hand traps inside orchards and then also on agricultural land and in remnant bushland. So there is actually 6 farms in this study. So 3 orchards were adjacent to agricultural land and another 3 adjacent to remnant bushland. So the results of this, and I'm not sure what those dots are doing, but anyway, it's very interesting. The results of this, unfortunately, are not through yet, so we can't really talk much more about that. But all the results we're hoping will be presented at the Avocado Australia Forum in June, if that goes ahead, but they haven't quite decided whether that's going ahead as yet. Actually, before we finish that, there was, additional trials on 3 farms. So the other thing that we have been doing is trials with inter-row cropping. So there are 2 farms in management and 1 down in Northcliffe around avocado orchards where they are planting an inter-row crop. So it's a mixed species, and it's actually a local seed producer who is providing a mix, which he calls a pollinator mix, which tends to be largely consists of black mustard, chicory, rye corn, peas, common vetch, messina, medic, balanza clover, Persian clover and crimson clover. And these are all sown at about 25 kilos to the hectare through the interrow. And that was done earlier this year in around about June, July. The avocados started flowering around about October or September, October. So they are comparing, we're going out and doing insect surveys to compare the difference between the avocados that have got interrow crops versus just a control, which tends to be a standard sort of ryegrass and clover interrow. And so those results will be coming through soon as well. But it's interesting in that just the actual management of that interrow has also, you know, I guess requires management strategies and advice, because as it is, the black mustard tends to come up very well, whereas other species tend not to come up. When they come up at different times, they're looking at different times of slashing the interrow to see if this will affect what flowers come up. So yeah, there's lots of management strategies will be coming out of that as well. So the project is due to finish in the middle of next year. So by then we should have a little bit more to say. But that's all I've got at this stage. Thanks, Jack.
Fantastic, Pete. That was really interesting, and we do look forward to the learnings and science that comes out of that. eDNA as a phrase was relatively new a few years ago. Now it's having an explosion, isn't it? And we're going to see much more of it even in the citizen science space. There's an interesting project unfolding. More about that later. Thank you very much. And some bits and pieces in the chat there. We're going to move to our final presentation for the event, and that is the wonderful Kate Tarrant from Lower Blackwood Landcare, who's going to share with us her regenerative agriculture in practice presentation. Thanks, Kate.
Thanks, Jackie. I'll just hang on and get my screen up for everybody. Okay, can everyone see that? Is that all good?
Yep, looks good.
Good, great. Okay, well, hi everybody, and nice to meet you all. I'm not sure how many of you know where we are, but maybe I'll just give a quick summary of our catchment. Where our district is bounded by the southwest coast from Redgate Beach to Augusta, and eastward into the Nannup Shire, and including all of the Scott River, and bounded in the east by the Donnelly River. So we're quite a significant catchment area for the Lower Blackwood River. So I'd like to talk to you today about our project Regenerative Agriculture in Practice. Our very first RAP project was delivered in 2020 and was designed around what we called a AAA framework, That is a framework which increased awareness of regenerative agriculture, what it is, what the components are, and why it was important. Secondly, to provide advice with participants having access to information and experts. And thirdly, to encourage adoption by providing participants with support and removing barriers to change. So rather than a series of random acts of extension, the program components have been designed as a series of linked activities that provide a range of learning, knowledge sharing and practice opportunities, including formal workshops, on-farm consultations and supporting peer group learning and coaching sessions, plus an information hub to provide supporting resources that come out of the project. And this next year will also see the inclusion of an online community as well. So far, in the 3 years of projects that we've conducted, we have had 40 participating farm enterprises. And when I say a farm enterprise, we recognise that farmers don't work in isolation. There's always a team of people, quite often a husband and wife, but often also family members. So it's a farm enterprise that is a participant rather than the individual. And over the 3 years, we've held 7 major workshops with 11 peer group sessions. We have developed 8 farmer case studies, 8 podcasts and 8 face-to-face or webinar talking after our webinar sessions. And as I alluded to earlier, this year we've also established an online community. The lessons we've learned over the past 3 years from those projects include, but not limited to, that context is everything, providing local examples and demonstrations, sharing local experiences and building information resources based on what's proven to work here is a key component to helping farmers develop the confidence to trial new practices. And also we realised that the project structure needed to be flexible and allow for continuation beyond the initial learnings from the program itself. Also important was access to trusted and proven practitioners and researchers, as they provided credibility and the science behind the principles of regenerative agriculture. At the same time, we realised there was a need for local mentors to provide that someone or that person to run something by when you're trying a new practice. We realised that going forward, we also had a need for a comprehensive, accessible, easy to use and easy to share resource centre to house all of the supporting resources that have been and will continue to be developed as part of this project. Regenerative agriculture, there are lots of opinions about what it is and what it isn't, but in our view, we think it is not prescriptive. It doesn't describe best practice. Rather, it provides a number of holistic underpinning principles to guide decisions on achieving ecosystem health goals and farming livelihoods. This outcomes-based approach, which relies heavily on a sound understanding of what makes a healthy and working agriculture ecosystem, gives farmers enormous flexibility on the how, with practices used to achieve the goals set being heavily reliant on the individual farm context. So very definitely not a one-size-fits-all solution. And another key lesson that we've learned and still learning is that it takes time. You don't just get things happening necessarily in one season or 2 seasons. It can take much longer. So I'd like to talk a little bit about this upcoming project, or this year's project, in fact, has actually started. Our 2023 WRAP project. The theme for next year is Farm Ecosystems for a Sustainable Future. So the components of this year's project, there are 4, as shown in this infographic, and within each component, there are a range of activities that combine theory and practice and the opportunities to have a go. The project duration is for 12 months, as it has been for the last 3 years, and the activities are spread over that time frame with at least 1 activity each month. Another key goal of the project is to further develop a community of practice. So some of the activities in this year, next year's RAP will be also available to previous project participants taking part as our new alumni members. And this is also where our newly developed Talking After Hours online community will be invaluable. For your information, signed up already, and we've just had our first information session, and we've got a second peer group session later today. We've got 17 new farm enterprises joined this year, and we have 13 alumni. So that's 30 farm enterprises, and with their plus ones that come along, that's quite a significant number of people talking to each other. Just a little bit more about our Talking After Hours online community. This is our members only online community and information hub. We've built it as a no stress, no judgment, easy access space to have conversations, to share knowledge, skills and practices on sustainable and regenerative agriculture anytime and anywhere. So the access to it is either via the web or via an app on your smartphone or Android, making it quite easy to connect with people. It has been a work in progress over the last 9 months. However, we're almost there, and we'll be ready to launch formally at the start of 2023. And through it, members will be able to connect with each other, with members with similar interests or operations, to join group, to sign up to special opportunities, and to access all of our content and resources. So we see it as a key part of the project. Just to give you a bit more detail on next year's activities, you can see how it's spread across the year and the different types of activities that are taking place. We've got this right now, we've got just a couple of preparatory peer group sessions to get some soil testing underway for results to be available early in January, so that if participants would like to have a go at some soil amelioration or cover cropping in autumn, they will have some information available to them early enough. Then we'll be holding some major workshops, including Dr. Christine Jones in February. We've got Dr. Judy Earle on grazing also in March. And then in June, July, we've got David Hardwick from Soil Land Food coming back for whole farm planning. And then through to August to October, we're finalising with more peer group sessions and final project debrief and showcase. And rather than have the last word myself, I thought you might actually like to hear from a couple of this year's project participants about why they joined and what they've got out of it. So I'll just play you this quick video. Hopefully it's going to work and that you can hear it okay. Thinking? Nope. Perhaps I'll get out of the PowerPoint and I'll share it just directly from YouTube.
I think that's a great idea, Kate.
Bear with me.
We've got a bit of time. You're doing well. Just while we're waiting, I see another link in there. Looks like that's from Keith at Gondwana about saving the kiwi with dog avoidance training, kiwi avoidance training for dogs. Very interesting. I know we're doing that with snakes and lizards and things here in Australia, where we don't have kiwi birds. We have other things that we want to protect from our lovely dogs. How'd you go, Kate?
I'm just trying to find Google. Can't find it on the screen share. Where it is? No, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it.
Not to worry. What we can do is, if you can access the link, we can post it in the chat. or we can share it later. But I guess it's if you want to tell us a bit about who the people are who's sharing their experience, we'll know what to look for.
Yes, that's hang on, what's that? That might be it. One sec. Here we go. Let's start again.
I think it's buffering quite a lot, Kate. I'm not sure if other people can hear it.
Okay. Okay, I'll share the link with you instead.
Terrific. And that, I guess, is a piece from people who are in the program.
Yes,
and a bit about their transition story over time.
Yeah, it's only a quick video just telling you why they joined the project, what they've got out of it. They're commercial sheep farmers and what value they've got out of it. And they've actually decided to continue on as alumni members for next year as well.
Wonderful. That's a great story. Thank you. So, Sabian, are you wanting to share because you're our techno whiz?
No, I just put a question into the chat.
Okay. Right. So now we'll move to the next part with the questions. We'll just go back a bit to Nicole's presentation. We have a question for Nicole from Bruce. And that question was, is this a sort of global first off, Nicole? Has it originated from here in WA?
No, it's not a first off for WA. Before we started the project, we did have a look around what was going on in Australia and worldwide. Everyone's got their own little version going on. I took a lot of inspiration from America for the catio tours because they are huge in America. They have huge issues with feral, well, they're kind of like urban cats going around, especially in the Portland area, but also domestic cats in very urban areas. So they have been doing for at least 10 years now these very elaborate catio tours, which I mean, you should get online and have a look at some of them. They're totally beautiful and inspirational if you've got a pet. And it's more like an open gardens or open studio scale where you've got like at least 20, 30 catios you can visit over a weekend. And then I took some inspiration. Tassie Cats is a really good website. So some community shires in Tasmania have linked together and they actually have paid staff to roll out similar projects, much more high intensity, that also match up with their laws. Because as you know, our laws actually, but what we're doing doesn't match up with the laws. Well, it doesn't, but there's no law to implement keeping your cat contained unless you can prove that it's been a nuisance. So those laws need to be updated a bit locally. Well, actually, they have to be updated state first so that you can then update them locally well.
Yeah, it's a good segue. Yep. There's a point in there from Johnny Profumo noting that the Shire of Capel has introduced some exclusion laws, levelling the playing field between dogs and cats. That's going to be fascinating to see. It'd be great to see some longitudinal studies, some funds there to look at the restoration in biodiversity and the impact that has on the social value that people gain from seeing the true benefits of having the animals more safely contained over time. The other question we had from Claire from the Shire of Donnybrook was about how you see this working for renters. I know there's been some exploration about, undoable, I can't think of the right word for catios that you can put on a rental house and then remove when you leave.
Yeah, portable catio. Yep. But there are portable catios out there. I guess the problem lies if your cat is an outdoor roaming cat, then you have to actually put in a lot of effort to transition it to indoor catio living, and it's whether the person is willing to do that or not. I didn't really understand the question, what it was asking though. I don't know how it, what she meant by the flow on to the renter. Yeah, but
I guess so maybe the perspective of that is if a renter comes into Capel and they have to contain their cat, but the Residential Tenancies Act doesn't require landlords to acknowledge that law. So a renter going to be caught in between, you know, perhaps being able to put on a portable catio, being able to afford a portable catio is quite complex, isn't it, for cat owners in that space?
Yep, totally. Yeah, I'm not familiar with all those legalities, but yeah, something that I have to work through.
It's a great step forward. Then we had a question from Sabian for Kate about retention of participants.
Oh, yep. Okay. Sorry. Where's the score?
The 13 alumni, did they stay with the program, Kate? Have you tracked them?
Yeah, that by the term alumni, I actually mean participants who've decided to join on. It's the first year we've actually offered it as a formal option, and they pay a lesser fee to join the program, but they can come to all the peer group coaching sessions, because we see that as a pretty key part of keeping everyone together, and that's the most interested, because they get to go on at different farms and, you know, share ideas and do lots of show and tells. So
my question was actually my question was, were those 13 alumni all of the participants from the previous year?
No, there's 10 from last year and three from the year before, actually. Yeah.
Great, thank you. I think it's a really important moment just to acknowledge the funding partners. We have a couple of them here today. We have Sally Forbes from State NRM and Sophie from DAF, without whom these projects and programs wouldn't be possible. We know we're getting better at attracting philanthropic investment and other co-investment partners into the space, and we want to get better and better at that. But if I was wearing their hats today, I'd be pretty impressed by the diversity and the success and the learnings of the programs that we're seeing out there. So pretty amazing work going on. What do you think, Mick?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, strength together and strength with support from our funders. And, you know, I suppose it also highlights something that we heard at the 8th National NRM Conference, a knowledge conference, which is if we're all ready to take opportunities for corporate funders, people who are looking to increase their corporate social responsibility, the funding that we get gives us the chance to prepare and organise. We can't always do everything that we want to do, and the opportunity to do some of those other things is there often when we get third or fourth party funders come in. So having the support, that core funding support is great, but using it to leverage additional support, and again, the value out of our volunteers is critical. So huge thanks to those funding organisations. There's also, you know, each of the NRMs and each of their groups for supporting the delivery of those. And, you know, we look forward as a network to working together with our groups and trying to support as many groups and members, whether they're with us or not, to deliver excellent projects which benefit our species, our landscapes, and our productive farming communities. So,
beautiful. And can I jump in, Mick, and just ask everyone, while you're still chatting, to pop their videos on for a moment, because Carolyn would love to get you all with a smile on your dial as a screenshot for posterity and to put in our next year's annual general meeting report.
Yeah,
thank you, Sally, for your comments on the fantastic projects and the diversity, the RLP and the NLP and State NRM, the National Landcare Network. We're all in it together, and we've nearly got our faces there. Cheryl Hammonds, we're looking for you. Eddie White John, Claire Palmer. Landcare, can't hide. Come on, Francis. Oh, there's the Frog Doctor. Hello, Frog Doctor. Well, that might be it, Caroline. People may have wandered away. It has been a mammoth 2.5 hours. Doesn't time fly when you're having fun? So let's see what we can do with that. Does everyone want to do thumbs up for Landcare? Thumbs up for another great year next year and for collaboration and working together. There they go. There's a Landcare SJ crew. Snap, smile.
Yeah, great work.
Cheers. Good on you, Jim. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, everybody. And if you haven't already, reach out to your volunteers on International Volunteers Day and let them know how awesome they are, because we think you're all pretty amazing and awesome. Thanks so much.